Welcome to People Love Process. Now, before I dive into this content, I'm deciding to record, even though this isn't an over the shoulder vector building episode, I'm kind of recording myself as I'm recording this. And usually, this is where I cheat in my videos, if you want to put it that way, because I'll write out an intro and an outro for each of the movies I create. I do that for LinkedIn Learning as well because I don't record myself. But those things, I just write them as if I was just going to talk. So it's not really scripted of sorts. It's just to really clarify the content that I want to go over and the things I want to approach. And I do that so the beginning and end are wrapped up nicely and they're concise and it gives you a good idea of what to expect. So pardon me as I kind of read through the intro, and I'll probably do that in the outro as well, but I'm looking at my notes that I wrote for the outro, and I didn't think the vendor that I used would get the finished product done so quick and shipped to me. And so I already have it. So I'll just wing my outro because it no longer, I'm not waiting for it to show up, and that'll make sense as we go over this. So a lot of the content I produce for both my full courses on LinkedIn Learning and on my YouTube channel, I try to derive most of it, not all of it, but most of it from real world creative projects because it's a lot easier for me to work on a creative process for a client-based project that I can just document that process and then deconstruct it, highlight those aspects of the creative process that are most learnable, if you want to put it that way, or teachable moments in that creative process, and kind of highlight those that I think people could benefit from. So that's usually the process I take. The content I want to go over in this movie today, though, is a personal creative project. Now, there's times, okay, this is one example. Over the years, my wife was going, hey, why don't you design a Christmas card for us? And I'm like going, really? I'm pretty busy. and I never do it. And then she goes out and buys Christmas cards. And I'm looking at them going, really? That's kind of corny, you know? And so this is that kind of moment, not a holiday specifically, but a group of people that are close friends of ours. They all go to church with us, and they've been studying the book of Romans. And during that time, the Romans is based off of the Roman Empire, which was occupying Israel back in the time of Christ. And so they got to a part of Ephesians that talks about putting on the full armor of God. And so I'm always doodling when I'm sitting in church, and I doodled these. You can see I'm drawing out the different pieces of Roman armor. And this is all the drawing I did for this project. This is one of those type of projects where you don't need to be a prolific drawer. You don't need to be that great of a drawer. You just have to capture the essence of what you want to create. So I captured the essence of wanting to create armor. And I even laid out, you can see a thumbnail here of kind of a bookmark that I wanted to design if I created these iconic designs. So that's what we're going to create in this movie. We're going to create iconic designs. So let's walk through that process now. Now, like the Christmas card idea, I could go out and look at what is out there, like a product I could order off of any given site online. But they're kind of corny. So here's these, this is like, that's not even the right kind of armor. I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to, historical accuracy. And this is like Knights of the Round Table armor, not the kind of armor. It's kind of corny looking. I don't like the type, and it's just, whatever. Here's another one. This is another one. This doesn't really look like the Knights of the Round Table. It does look like medieval armor, so again, not the right kind of armor, but it looks more like the Lord of the Rings type of vibe almost. And I'm pretty sure this is AI driven. And I don't want to support that either. And I don't want a big old barcode on the back of a bookmark. It's like, why they'd even do that, I don't know. But anyway, so this I thought was corny. What's a little more corny, because AI is on the scene now and everything, and winding up and everything. I found this with the same thing called Full Armor God, but this is like Full Armor God if it's Lord of the Rings universe or whatever. And I'm like going, no. And by the way, they're sandals. They're not boots with straps on them. So in that respect, I don't know. If you were like creating the armor that Sauron would give to his what are those, the orcs or whatever, it might look something like this. Although this is a Greek type helmet, so that doesn't even work. So we're going to create Roman based iconography that reflects the historical accuracy of Rome. And so this is where, when I get into a project like this, especially a personal project, I kind of go off on researching and trying to understand, to capture in an iconic way. These aren't going to be photographic by any means. They'll be proportionate, and there's some levity there as well, but it's to make them look representative of what historically Roman armor would be. So this is where I started diving into it and looking, okay, what do you have out there? Well, you have all these events that people do all around the world. Here's one from Europe where some European guy has recreated Roman era armor, even with these medallions on the chainmail, and he has a centurion helmet. They either wore it sideways like this, or it went the same, more like the one you see in the far right. Although the one in the far right it's using Roman styled armor, but this is a project some CGI artist did to see if he could make a Roman soldier look accurate with all the different armor, although I don't think they wore sweatpants like that. I think they're pretty much open air like this, wearing a toga type of skirt with the cloak that falls in the back, and you could see their bare legs. They sometimes had armor on their shins and knees, but not even that at times. This guy over here is wearing sweatpants too. So other than those little minor things, these are a pretty good idea of Roman armor. Now, Roman shields came in all different shapes. This is kind of the one we're going to replicate, this kind of taller, rectangular, rounded edged one, not so much the circle one. It depends on what era of the Roman Empire you're looking at, and the one we're dealing with would have had shields like this. So these are all things I'm kind of taking into account. Certain things of historical stature. I try looking at, there's a really good app called Perplexity, because you can search for, like in this case, I typed in Roman armor museum displays, and a lot of these came up. Now, a lot of these are part of museum displays for a Roman belt, and the belt would hold the sword, and it would have some kind of, I'm calling it bling, that's not what they call it, like medallions or whatever on it. And it had this part that was, gird your loins. That's protecting the loins there. Here's another one over here. All of these are replicas, though, but they're based off of what's been captured in statues, because anything that's organic based tends to deteriorate over time. But these are all reflective of the belt that we're going to create, so I'm using that to reference. And then the chest plate. Now, the chest plate was made of iron. Here's one they actually found on the right-hand side here. This is in a museum. I can't remember what museum this is, but you can see the armor's all deteriorated and rusted. But based off of these discoveries, they've made replicas that look just like this one on the left. So this would be the left side of the armor, this is the right side of the armor, and this is how it would have looked in mint or the time period condition when it was worn. And here's another museum with that same type of armor displayed here. So that gave me enough easily to do the breastplate. The hardest one is, in my opinion, the sandals, because there are no existing archaeology from what I could find reference wise that existed. And it's probably because they're just all leather. And that deteriorates over time, especially if it's buried underground. Here's some that somebody's made up that looks like what that period would be, but talk about complexity. Iconography is about taking complexity and deducing it down to a simple form. And I'm going, that's going to be hard to simplify. The more I looked at this one, which is literally just the ankle part of some statue they found, but it has a Roman sandal on it, so you can see what it looks like. I go, well, I can work from that, and it's a lot simpler than this spaghetti leather mess over here for footwear. So that's how I'm going to handle the sandal, although that was the toughest one of all of them to create, in my opinion. So the shield is probably the easiest because it's a rectangular shape. Now, the one that I have here in the foreground with the center metal piece and this one here, both of these are replicas. These aren't like actual archaeological finds. This one is. This one in the left-hand side is one of the same pieces of shield. You can see it almost looks like a can. It looks like a cylinder, but that's just because it's been around. They haven't flattened it out or anything. It had a curve to it, but you can see how old this goes. And this dates back 2,000 years to the Roman Empire, the time when they were occupying Israel and Jerusalem and everything. But this is, just look at the artistry on this. I thought that was interesting. I also think it's interesting. Check out what you get in this corner. I just noticed that right now. I didn't even notice that before. There's a little swastika type thing. Now, obviously, Nazis weren't around. That comes from Asian culture. So somehow, and the Romans went into all these different areas. So the Roman Empire got pretty big, and it probably adapted some iconography from different areas that it took over. But this is the type of shield I'm going to create. And they do believe these kind of graphics were on it, which is kind of cool because you know somebody who is artistic had to paint those on. Once again, this is just a replica. But you can see painting of a lion down here, you know. You can see an eagle. You can see a couple, maybe those are angels. They look like humans with wings. So, warfare implements were somewhat artistic, which is kind of interesting because as time has marched on, you don't see painted graphics or anything illustrative or artistic on vehicles unless it's camo, whatever. So the shield's going to be the easy one. The helmet, a little complex, but of all the artifacts from this time period dealing with Roman armor and what the military legions had, they have helmets that have survived. This is a more sculpted piece out of bronze, but it shows what molded into the helmet is this crown part with the plume, and they have this part. Now, this dates a little later in what we want. We want something earlier, so this is an actual archaeological find of a Roman centurion helmet. This doesn't have the plume on it, but with other information they found, this is kind of what it looks like. So this gives me all the information I need for the helmet. It's a little complex shape-wise, but it's not going to be a hard one to do. One of the easier ones is also the sword. Plenty of archaeological reference for that. This is a real Roman sword from that time period. The interesting part is the handle was bone, which kind of surprised me because you would think it would be like metal or whatever, like one whack with an inner sword, seems like that would break pretty easy, but who knows. But you can see how beat up this one is, but you have the scabbard that holds it. Here's a scabbard over here, but no sword was found with this one, but a lot of replicas based off of those same proportions. So we have a lot of reference in that regard. Now, when it comes to iconography, you want to keep proportion in mind. Now, in a general sense, square is what you want, but there's a lot of freedom in that. Now, if you're doing software, yes, everything has to be a square proportion, and it needs to have enough weight that it holds up to unify a family of icons in a user interface. A lot of forgiveness when it comes to print. I use this as a general rule when it comes to print, and the reference we're going to use for each of the 6 icons are going to be these ones. And I just laid these out to show you that, yes, they fit a square proportionately, but they're not perfect. They don't fill the whole space. They don't need to. We just need to use continuity of all the gaps between our shapes will match on each icon. That'll create unity. The overall size will go with one another, but they're not going to be the exact same size as you're going to see. And again, I think the sandals are going to be the hardest one. So what we're going to start with is we're going to go ahead and start with the shield one. So we'll turn on our reference. I'll just zoom in here like this. You can see the shield is more of a kind of a vertical rectangle with rounds in it. The top is round, the bottom is round. So what I want to do is I'll start off this to represent the right and the left side shape. I'll clone this, Command C, Command F. No reason to go to ellipse tool and create another one. And then I'll just adjust this one to something like that. Then I can take these two like that, and I can go intersect with Pathfinder. That gives me the overall base shape. And then to match the rounds, this is where you can just go to the corner widget. Just go to the direct select tool. The corner widget will come up. It'll detect the 4 corners in this, and then you just pick whatever size you want that round to be. Let's say it's about 24, something like that. That'd be fine. We're just reflecting on this. And by the way, this is a lot taller. This is one where I kind of squashed it a bit because I didn't want it super tall in terms of the final layout and design. So I'm taking a little creative liberty with that. But this is going to work fine here. And then this is a nice graphic we're going to do on the inside. But first, I think we want to have an inline on this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go to path. I'm going to go to offset. We're working in points, even though I usually have the ruler turned off just to clean up the interface. We'll go -10 like that. So it goes to the inside. And then on all of these lines, the tolerance we're going to use for gaps between shapes is going to be 3 points. So we'll go over here. Right now it's 0.5. We'll just go 3. That'll be the knockout of the background. Then we'll just select these two because I'm just going to knock those out as well. So all we have to do is select this now, go to path, go to outline stroke, turn it into shapes. Do the same thing with these. Go path, go outline stroke, go unite, making sure this is on top of our iconic cross here. I'll take both and I'll go minus front like that. We can take this, make sure it's on front, on top that is. Then we'll minus front. I'm going to cut this, select this, paste behind, and then I can go ahead and make that black. Take this, select this, go minus front, and we have the final icon I want to create. So that's all we're going to do for each of these. So the next one I want to work on is the belt. And so we'll go ahead and create that. We can turn these off. We'll turn this on. Of course, this is going to be our general reference. But again, We're not worried about being exact to the photos. They're just going to inspire us. And when I think of Romans, I think of those leather flaps that go down. Now, I should have put that in this. I didn't even think about it. When I was in high school, I had what was it? It was we went over Roman history. We went over the Middle Ages. It was I can't remember. It was a history class, but anyway, it was one of my favorite. The teachers were awesome. And what they would do for you could get extra credit and boost your grade is at the end of the year, they had a theme based off of that time period that we were studying history in. And one of them was Rome. And I did Roman armor. And my dad had remodeled our bathroom and pulled out all the old linoleum and put in new flooring and stuff. Well, I noticed on the back of the linoleum, it looked like leather. And so I use that to create basically the skirt that a Roman soldier wears in his armor. And that's kind of what I was thinking here. So I'm going back to that. And all I've done here is I've created a shape here that will create the arch I want to create on all of these flaps. But I don't want these flaps to be pointed. I want these to be rounded, but I want the arch of everything to be the same. So right now we have 6 different straps hanging off of the belt. That's fine. But I only have one shape like this. Now I kind of miss in freehand, I could select these shapes with this shape on top, and I could go minus front, and it would just cut through all the pieces underneath, much like a sandwich with a knife going through it. It doesn't really work that way. Now this is where I only use these shape modes for the most part, but it might do it on one of these down here. So if we do, nope, that one didn't do it. So I'm just going to Command Z and try all of them. Nope, that didn't do it. Let's try this. Nope, that didn't do it. That, nope. I doubt this one. Well, this is the outline. Yeah, that one I still have no good usage for. And let's try this one. Let's try that one again. You know, I'm going to try some. I should have tried this. I wasn't even thinking of showing this one. Then I decided to. We'll put it behind instead of front and see if that does anything different. Oh, it still just does one. So, unfortunately, freehand would do that. And I've always missed that feature because I used it all the time. Then when I moved over to freehand or moved from freehand over to Illustrator, I've been using Illustrator longer, and I used freehand for 15 years. Then I moved over to Illustrator. I've been using Illustrator, 22 years, something like that. So what I have to do, unfortunately, is you would have to make 5 more copies of this if you want to do it that way. Or you could select all of them like this. Like, let's just go ahead and select this so you know this is the one that's going to edit it like that. We'll select all these. And then you can go to the shape building tool here, shape builder tool. And if you hold minus down, it'll just get rid of all of these and trim it. But notice it's going to do this. And this is the part I don't get about Illustrator. I mean, it's faster in doing it each 6 different times, doing the same method. But this will add anchor points here. And then on this one, it'll add anchor points here. So even though you save time doing the other stuff, you have to go and clean up stuff like this with Illustrator. This is the part about Illustrator that just frustrates me. But this is where I'll double click into this to get to isolation mode. That way I can't accidentally affect other lines. We'll go ahead and select these. And I'll just go, since it's on a straight curve, we'll just go minus like that. I could have probably selected both of these at the same time. I didn't think of that. We'll select these and just go minus front. So that's how you have to clean these up like that on this one, because it did the same thing over here. So what we'll do, instead of isolation mode is I'll go to direct select. I'll select both of these shapes where those are, and we'll just go minus front like that. So didn't really plan on that, but that's the way it goes when you're shape building in Illustrator. It will just add anchor points at times. So these are easy because we can just select both of these corners like this, and I'll just round them. Actually, we could probably do all of them at once like that. There we go. And that's what I wanted to get that nice kind of belt look action. We'll select all these. We're going to go to stroke. We'll set these to 3 because we want these gaps to, the outline of this will represent the gap. And then we'll just flip the colors. So once we have these set with the size, then we can go outline stroke. It turns it into shapes. Then we can simply go to compound and release. You might have to hit ungroup a few times. Then we can just select all the outer shapes, and you can see it's created that gap in between all of them like that. We'll color these black, go back to layers, and to represent those medallions they have on them, we're going to take these, but first, let's go ahead and select this and go Unite. Make sure it's a compound. Select these, and we can go minus front. Now we have the icon for the belt. We're going to do one more here. So we're going to do the helmet, which is, it's not the hardest by any means. This is the reference we're going to use to build from. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And the helmet itself, we can start off with a circle. Now, if you're using the corner widget to do all your rounding, you'd want to start off with a square. Then you can do the rest as I'm going to show it. That's the only difference between the way I'm showing it. But I use circle because I like using dynamic corners rounding tool more than, I use both, but more than the corner widget, just because I think it's more precise and it's easier to control and do subtle little rounding with. So I start with the circle. Once again, you could start with the square and do the same thing. You just go to the circle shape. I'm going from the circle shape, which represents the top here, and I'm just going to go ahead and take this and make a scallop shape since it kind of goes square down the back and in the front. That's why I'm doing that. And then this is where editing shapes come in, meaning I'll use other shapes to continue shape building. So we'll turn these shapes on. You can see these are rectangles. The other easiest shape to create other than this elliptical shape is a rectangle shape. And that's all I've done here. And these are going to guide our editing of the shape we just selected. So I'm going to take this shape here. Well, first, let's do this. We're gonna take this and take this one, and I'll go and this one. Let's select these two. We'll use the corner widget there. We'll take this and that shape. We'll unite those together. And then I'm going to take this. We'll minus front. This will become part of the front here. So I'm going to take this. I bet. Oh, I did do that. Okay, no biggie. I do this when I'm working too, so I'll just slide this over, slide this up. I don't want that to ruin the curve here, and I'll slide this back till it hits that anchor. So don't be afraid to zoom in. That's how you do things. I don't even know what this part is. It's almost like a visor. I'm guessing, so if they're outside and it's raining and water is coming down, it would drip past this. Otherwise, with cohesion, it would just go like this and go into the inside of the helmet. I'm just guessing though, but that'd be my guess. So we're going to select these. And we'll just go to unite like that. So that's how I'd create the top part of the shape there. Now on the top of the hat, these are just elliptical shapes. Now the only difference is I create these big donut shapes. So this, if I go Command F, bring it to the front, select this, and I go minus front, we have just a big donut shape. That's how I created this one. And I trimmed it. Now, this isn't a perfect straight line. So if I turn on this edit shape here, notice it kind of goes down. I noticed in all the reference, the plumes aren't a straight across. It's not like a giant U. It's like a U with a bend to it. So I paid attention to that. So I could take this one and I could go like that to get the final shape that I wanted to make there. So all of these are going to be turned to outline so we get that gap going on. Now on this one, the cheek guard, which is this part of the helmet, I've shown this before, but again, I tried to build this by just building the curves as I went along, and it didn't look as geometric as I wanted it to match the style of the icons. So this is all I did, is I built straight. None of this has any Bezier curves in it. If I just select them, they're all just straight corners. So this is where I want to build those curves. And so what I want to do is I'm going to create, okay, I have the right tool. We're going to use the corner widget so you can see how you do it natively. And then we're just going to match the idea of this, but it might be a little bigger than what the photo is. That's okay. Doesn't really matter. And yes, I'm cheating. I'm looking at some settings I had just so it in general matches what I had. I usually have those right in front of me at eye line, so I can cheat and look at those, and it reminds me, because trying to remember everything I want to cover, man, if I didn't have notes, I would forget a lot. So I do that to pay attention. And on this one, we'll bring this in to about, I don't know, could be right about there if you want it. It could even be farther. It could be something like this. That'd be good. And then all these other curves, like this one, we could get that curve. We go here. This would become a curve. I go on this one, and this one become a curve. And then these should probably be the same type of curves. So I do these at the same time. But that's how I create an irregular shape like that has a lot of curves in it. But this would be an easier way to think through it and build it precisely, especially in an icon. So that's the way I handled that. Now on the neck guard, which is this back part that goes over kind of behind the neck, and I'm guessing that's so if a sword's coming down, it hits this and slides off. It's kind of interesting if you think about the functionality of a lot of these. And so we have this, but I don't want this to have a line in it. So this is where I'll just select these two and go unite like that. And by the way, it gets rid of that extra anchor point there, only because I always have this setting turned on in Pathfinder options, remove redundant anchor points. So when you're building on a straight line, it'll remove, it won't add any more anchor points. Does that remove all appearances of redundant anchor points? Ironically, no. And you've heard me say that before. So then we have the plume. This attaches to the helmet. We're going to go ahead and make that, give that some volume. We'll go to 7 like that. And that's all we're going to do. I'll take these. I'll take these. We'll switch these to 3 points like that. And we're going to go white. And we'll go fill to black like that. This will just become black. And of course, I would go ahead. Let's go ahead and turn off our reference here. So this is where I would take this and I would expand it to create just shapes without any strokes in it, but I'm not going to go through that. Now, the hardest one I wanted to show you next, and this is the sandal. And of course, this was our reference, which wasn't really helpful that much as I started trying to build this out. I kept wanting to go, I want to draw this out first and then I can try to build it. And I'm going, no, I just want to go off the reference. I gave up and so I go, I need better reference. I'm going to take some artistic liberty with this, like the reenactments that create their own armor and stuff for the reenactment. And I saw this one and I go, okay, that's not exactly like a Roman a Roman sandal, but it's good enough for this. So it's good enough for an icon. So as much as I tried, I kind of cheated on this one to make it simpler. This is the Roman sandal that, I came up with. And the way I like to work is just to create, by the way, this tolerance matches other tolerances in terms of how vertically high it is. So I kind of keep those tolerances intact, but I can select all of these elements and just go unite. Then I can grab this, make sure it's on front. We'll even color it blue like that because I want to get that tolerance of a 3-point gap in between where those go into the sandal. I want to have a gap in all of them in some way to tie them all together stylistically. So this is where I'll just trim that to get that gap. Then I go in here and I'd unite all of these. And this is how I would create this sandal. So I figured out an easier way to build it. It kind of is more complex than the other ones, but ultimately it'll go together. Now, one thing that I did with all these icons, and it looks like, you know what? I think I had a copy there. I had an extra layer. So I'll make sure to take that out of the exercise file. Let's go ahead and just delete that. For some reason, I had an extra one. This is the one I meant to turn on. I go in on these, and I wanted to show you this. We don't need the proportion on. Let's go in. Notice I put these little rounds in it. So if we go back to our drawing, you can see the drawing just came to a point. So I would go in here, and you could use the corner widget to easily do all this because you can select all those corners, and then you can go, let's round those. Maybe it's just a subtle round like that. And that's going to look a lot better, especially on the sandals. You could go down here. Maybe these are a little larger round. Again, I would do all of the rounds on the sandal the same, like that. So that's a little detailing. And I did that on every single icon to improve the overall aesthetic. You can see it on the sandal one here. So all of my icons proportionately, I left that guy on for the shield. Let's go back up here. So these are all the icons that I created. And even on, for example, the belt, if we go in on the edge, you can see I rounded off all that detail on the belt. I even went in on the shield, rounded off the little elements, the pointed aspects on the cross. You saw the sandals. I did the same thing on the helmet. Now, the more I was looking at the helmet, let's zoom in on this, I didn't like this gap so much. It didn't really hit me until I turned it into black and white, because they would tie this is the metal part right here. They would tie rope to the top of their helmet to that to hold it in place, just to made it more rigid. I'm assuming so that, like, if the wind blew, it wouldn't bend the shaft or something. That might have been it. I don't know. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move things down. So you can see I have an anchor point here and here, but I want to go down about that far. So this is kind of how I do that when I need to do this type of thing. I'll put about how far the distance I want to move it, and I'll add an anchor point to this. Then we'll go to lasso tool, and we'll just crudely select all the anchors in the plume. I'll focus on this one, slide it down until it snaps where I had placed that anchor. And that's where Smart Guides comes in. You want to have Smart Guides turned on, Command U, and that way it'll slide on that stroke path and then hit the anchor, and it'll snap to where that anchor was. So you do it precisely. You're not eyeballing it at a certain angle. And then I just go in on the extra anchor and we just go delete like that. And I think that looks a lot better, having it just tucked in a little closer. And then you might be saying, wow, this sword is kind of thin compared to everything. You're right. And this is where I would just rotate it 45 degrees. And I think that works a lot better. So again, are all these perfect proportions? Well, no. But the continuity between all of these icons, the gaps in between the shapes, all make it work in a unified fashion. So that's what I wanted in this. I want this to represent each of the parts of the armor referenced in Ephesians. And why did I do this? Well, one, I thought all the corny art looked bad, so I wanted to design my own bookmark. So let's switch over to this file. So I'm in my bookmark file, and one thing I want to point out, and by the way, you might have saw a little hiccup there in the recording. That's because I noticed something, and it's a new bug in Illustrator. I thought, oh, what? Did I not put my swatches in this file? What's up with that? And so I went and I loaded the file back up, and they're in there. I go, okay, I don't know. And I set up to record again. And this time it's doing it again. And I'm going, what is going on? It's like, let's click this. And I go, no, I don't want the generate pattern. Crimey. And I go over here and I'm going, well, now it's like not even wanting to do anything. And then I click on this and now this lights up. And then I go here, well, there they are. And I go, but why isn't it showing up here? And that's what Illustrator does. It's like literally the last time I was working on this was like, I don't know, a week ago on this machine, and this wasn't a thing. Well, apparently it's set to auto update on this machine, and that's why I have that turned off on my workstation, because they introduce new bugs on a very regular basis at Adobe. Okay, so be aware of that. I don't know why it's doing that. And at times, if you go into isolation mode and you're working, then you leave it, what you just left will just look like it disappeared. It's there. Just refresh the screen and it'll show up. But it's like stupid bugs. Anyway, just a side note, that's Adobe. You got to be better. Okay, we're going to take this shape, and this is the background shape. Two primary colors in the bookmark I designed, a gold color and a purple type of color. So this is the background. The icon we design will be placed in each zone, kind of like this, but this will be, it'll have that to it in terms of the color. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a burst. This burst, I want it the same color as the icon fill, no outlined, obviously, like this. And because we're using global colors, and in this case, it's a Pantone process color to get a specific gold, so it will work great in print. We want to turn this into a tint. So that's what T represents here on the color palette. And I'm going to go to 85 because I want this not to stand out too much, but I want it to contrast with the background. Now, you could do this one or two ways. You could create a copy of your background shape, make sure that's in front of the burst that you created. And the burst, by the way, I didn't bother to build it from scratch. You would just use the star tool. You can pull them out, and you can use the arrow keys to get as long. That's how I created the burst, not hard. That feature has been around since version 1. You can take the copy of the shape in the background, select the burst, and you can mask it. I have that set up as an F1 to mask, and you can mask it if you wanted to set it up like that, or if you know this is, I only do this if I'm not sure I want to move it and it makes it non-destructible. But let's go ahead and Command Z that, because instead of doing that, you can also just go, if you know this is where you want it and it's the same location on every one of your grid or your layout, how you're going to be using it, you can just use the intersect, so it will make a new shape. You'll lose that the tint, so let's go back and fill it with the gold. Go back here and set it for 85, like that. That looks good. This is where I wanted to put a blend in between the icon and the background, but I wanted to use a shading hue. And so what is that? Now, I've shown this in our videos. This is the Pantone color I have. And if we go to color, the color palette here, and I click on Pantone, this is the break. Now, if I wanted to make a shading hue of this, I'd probably cut the red in half to about 12. I cut this down to about 43, 42, something like that. So it's more of a muddy, and I might just retain as much black as we have. And this would become a shading hue. That's all I did, and that's what this one is. So if I select this and go here, you can see I cut those values down specifically. I guess I didn't so much in the red and yellow. Okay, this is a different shading hue, but it worked great. So, and I'll show you that in just a second. So we're going to take this gradient, and let's go to the gradient palette, open it up. Oh, I'm moving I probably shouldn't. Okay, let's do this. We'll move me. Hi. I shouldn't have put the gradient palette here. Okay, all we're going to do is color the gradient here. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that shading value to replace the black. And then I want it to blend to the base color gold we're using. And I'll drop the gold in it. But on the base color gold here, I don't want the opacity 100%. I want it to be 0. So it's going to nothing. And that way it fades out nicely over the background like that. And you could even put a multiply on this. So if we go to the transparency palette, we could go multiply, and then you can adjust the value to adjust the intensity. In this case, we'll go 60, like that. And then the final touch is, the graphic-wise, is on this. I'm going to go to the appearance, and notice we have an outer glow, and I'm going to turn that on just to pop it from the background a bit, and then the typography will go like that with each of the icons in the design. Now, overall, let's go ahead and close that, move me back down where I was here. Overall, the bookmark ended up looking like this. This is the front, each of the icons with the context in place. This is the back. I obviously built it with the bleed in mind, and ultimately this is going to be die cut with round corners like this. So this project was a lot of fun to work in. And the first thing I want to say is, I was going to say right now I'm having these bookmarks printed, but they actually showed up yesterday. So I get to add this into the video. Here's a good example of one, the front part, and then you have the back part. They're UV coated, nice round corners, great printer in Texas that I've worked with for 15 years called Slate Group. They do great work. Anyway, so this was a lot of fun. I hope you got something from this. And here's the deal I want to do. If you go to the description below the video of this movie, you'll find my email address in there. And if any of you want one of these bookmarks, I'll send you 1 to 5 bookmarks. Just tell me how many you want. Email me using the email address in the description below, but make sure to include a snail mail address, a shipping address, so I can mail it to you. It won't cost you anything. These will fit in an envelope nicely, and I might even throw in a nice sticker. So Thank you again for watching People of Process. I hope you get something from the content I share. I spent a lot of time putting these together. I spent a couple days on this project last week or the week before last, and hope you enjoyed it. It's a little different fare. I usually draw everything out and build from my drawing, but in this case, when it comes to iconography, it's such simple geometric shapes. You don't always have to do that. So until next time, thank you for watching People of Process. Don't forget to ask for your own bookmark. I'd be happy to send you one. And until next time, thanks for watching.